So today, I want to go over an article on a blog by Yehuda Lev, and the reason is because I've been getting reports from some people who listen to my videos that there is a fellow in Israel right now that some are claiming to be the Moshiach, the Messiah. And they're calling him Yeshayahu Moshiach, or Ben David, I should say. Now, I'm looking around, and I'm skeptical. Well, I'm not going to completely rule out what he says. I always have an open mind, okay? But the first thing that I do when that subject comes up is go to the prophets. Always go to the prophets. Because in the prophets and in Moses is where the promises are made. The promises are not made in the Talmud. It's made in Moses and the prophets. So we're going to get started with his blog. So the title is "No Planes, No Jews Can Come to Israel, Prediction of Messianic Times." Now, you go part ways into this article and you see where he is getting this from. And if we don't watch it, we even miss it completely. So he's claiming that Corona is gematria for Moshiach. Classical Jewish texts predict a Messiah who will come to redeem the Jewish people gathered to exile to the land of Israel and rule over a prosperous nation, and relate other more detailed and diverse traditions about the Messiah's arrival as well as the conditions of the Messianic era. According to the Talmud, Babylonian Talmud, Rosh Hashanah 31a, and Sanhedrin 97, Midrash, and the Zohar, the deadline by which the Messiah must appear is 6,000 years from creation. All right. Is that anywhere in the prophets written that way? No. Does the prophet say when? Yes. But the problem, the prophets do not give time and date. So I'm going to give you a when right now. I'm going to give you two witnesses. I'm going to give you Ezekiel, and then I'm going to give you Yoel. Two witnesses. Right? Whereas I want to use King James. Well, I can use Aramaic, Bible, and plain English. As when a shepherd takes care of his flock in the day of violent rain, so shall I take care of my sheep when I shall gather them out from all the regions where they are scattered in the day of clouds and thick darkness. Now, I prefer using, let's just go to Strong's Concordance. I'll find it that way. I always prefer using Hebrew language. As a shepherd seeks his flock in the day, in the midst of his sheep who are scattered, so will I seek out my sheep and will deliver, will strip them out of all the places where they have been scattered, dashed to pieces. In the cloudy and dark day. All right. Now we can go to Joel 2. Hold on. Right here. After those days, I will pour out my spirit upon all flesh, and your sons, Joel, he's speaking to the prophet, he's speaking to about the people of Israel, and your daughters shall prophesy, and your old men shall dream dreams, and your young men shall see visions. Is this happening yet among the Hebrews, among the Jews? I'm not going to answer that question. I'm going to ask you to answer that question for yourself. And also upon the servants and the handmaids in those days will I pour out my spirit, and I will show signs. Now, you're looking for a sign, my Jewish brothers. He's giving you a sign. There will be a sign, a portent. You know what portent means. Portent. Let's look it up. Not portentous. Portent, a sign or warning that something, especially something momentous or calamitous, is likely to take place. So we know that these signs are going to take place before, or as it reads here, facing, in the face of the day of Jehovah's wrath. So, these are calamitous, signs of calamity coming. Show signs of calamity coming in the sky and in the earth. Blood, fire, and pillars of smoke. We know what those pillars of smoke are. Those are eruption of volcanoes. But they're not just the normally average everyday eruption that you see on the face of the earth. And more signs. The sun will turn to darkness and the moon into blood before or facing the great and terrible day of Jehovah. Right? Now, and it shall come to pass that those who proclaim the name of Jehovah shall be delivered. In Mount Zion and in Jerusalem shall be deliverance, exactly as Jehovah has said, and in that remnant, that last generation, whom Jehovah shall call. Now, I gave you two witnesses. They say the same thing. There are more. In fact, I think you'll find it even in the next chapter. Look. Still the same witness. Multitudes and multitudes in the valley of decision, for the day of Jehovah is near in the valley of decision. The sun and the moon shall be dark, and the stars shall withdraw their shining. Now this right here says the sun and the moon shall be dark, and it doesn't even say that the moon is going to be red. Is that a second one? Okay. It says Jehovah shall roar out of Zion and utter his voice from Jerusalem. And the heavens and the earth shall shake, but Jehovah will be the hope of his people and the strength of the children of Israel. Now, he says he's going to gather them in that cloudy and dark day. And I will bring them out from the people and gather them from all the countries and will bring them into their own land. All right, let's continue with this article. Now, on the subject of converting to Judaism in the Messianic age. What is all this? Why do you have to keep putting stuff like that up on advertisings? Anyway, A central question that preoccupied the rabbis was how the Messianic age would differ from the present age. One concern is that many Gentiles would convert to Judaism at the last moment just in order to participate in the new age. Some sages concluded, therefore, that the converts are not received in the days of Messiah, as they were not welcome in the days of David and Solomon. This is according to the Babylonian Talmud, Yevamot 24b. Therefore, if there are no plains, no Gentiles can come to Israel to convert to Judaism. Really? Why are you not reading the prophets? If you're saying no plains can come to Israel, what you're saying is none of the Jews that are scattered out throughout all the countries will be able to come back. That's essentially what you're saying. So once again, let us go to Isaiah 14 first. We're first going to dispel the idea that Gentiles will not be able to be grafted in. You see, this standard that I'm about to speak about is written in your Torah. For Jehovah will have mercy on Jacob and will choose Israel and set them in their own land. That's number one. That is the first order of business. And strangers shall be joined with them, and those strangers will cleave to the house of Jacob. Well, that just blew that narrative apart. And the Gentiles will take them and bring them back to their own place, and the house of Israel shall possess them in the land of Jehovah for servants and handmaids. Who? Which ones? The ones whose captives they were, the ones who were their oppressors. Okay? Let's continue. The term, what is the end of days? The term end of days is taken from Numbers 24:14. This has always been taken to be a reference to the Messianic era. Here we shall explore, albeit briefly, the Jewish belief in the coming Moshiach. What does the word Moshiach mean? Moshiach is the Hebrew word for Messiah. The word Messiah in English means a savior or hoped for deliverer. The word Moshiach in Hebrew actually means anointed. But it means more than anointed. It means anointed and savior as well. In biblical Hebrew, the title Moshiach is bestowed upon somebody who has attained a position of nobility and greatness. For example, the high priest is referred to as a Kohen HaMoshiach. In Talmudic literature, the title Moshiach or Melech HaMoshiach, the King Messiah, is reserved for the Jewish leader who will redeem Israel at the end of days. What is the belief in Moshiach? One of the principles of Jewish faith enumerated by Maimonides is that one day there will arise a dynamic Jewish leader, a direct descendant of the Davidic dynasty, who will rebuild the temple in Jerusalem and gather Jews from all over the world and bring them back to the land of Israel. I tell you, what you're doing here is you're putting the temple in Jerusalem of more importance than the people. Let me explain. I'm going to explain by asking a rhetorical question. Which came first? The leading of all Israel out of the land of Egypt and bringing them back to the Holy Land, or was it building the temple? Which came first? Well, any fool knows that gathering the people out of Egypt and bringing them to the land of Israel came first. Building the temple came later. Now, he says, all the nations in the world will recognize Moshiach to be a world leader and accept his dominion. Really? Really? Do you actually believe that? Knowing what the Christians believe today, do you actually believe that the Christians and the Muslims are going to recognize him? I tell you, they're going to call him the Antichrist, is what they're going to do. They have set themselves up, brainwashed themselves to believe that Israel's Moshiach is actually their Antichrist. In the Messianic era, there will be world peace, no more wars, nor famine, in general, a high standard of living. Do you honestly think there won't be a war? You don't think that the Gentiles will attack Israel and the Moshiach? Now, he continues, the coming of Moshiach will complete, I don't know why he uses the term God when that is a term of the false idol of the Norsemen, the Gauls and the English. It's Jehovah. We'll worship one Jehovah, and that would be correct, and live a more spiritual and moral way of life. The Jewish nation will be preoccupied with learning Torah and fathoming its secrets. Well, it is written that they're going to know Jehovah. That is going to be number one. If you read the book of Ezekiel in 38 and 39, it says, from that day and forward, they shall know Jehovah. Is this not a utopian dream? No, Judaism fervently believes that with the correct leadership, humankind will change. Leadership quality of Moshiach means that through his dynamic personality and an example coupled with manifest humility, he will inspire all people to strive for good. He will transform a seemingly utopian dream into a reality. He will recognize as a man of Jehovah with greater leadership qualities than even Moses. In today's society, many people are repulsed by the breakdown of ethical and moral standards. Life is cheap, crime is rampant, drug and alcohol abuse is on the increase, children have lost respect for the elders, and at the same time, technology has advanced in quantum leaps. There is no doubt that today man has all the resources, if channeled correctly, to create a good standard of living for all mankind. He lacks only the social and political will. Moshiach will inspire all men to fulfill that aim. Inspire? He will inspire Israel too, and even some Gentiles, the ones who cleave to the house of Israel. You say they're not going to be allowed to come in. Or some rabbis say that Gentiles will not be allowed to come in and cleave to the house of Israel, yet it says so in Isaiah 14. All right, so why the belief in human Messiah? Some people believe that the world will evolve by itself into a messianic era without a human figurehead. Judaism rejects this belief. Human history has been dominated by empire builders greedy for power. Others believe in Armageddon, that the world will self-destruct either by nuclear war or by terrorism. Again, Judaism rejects this view. Now, those of you who've been listening to my channel, I have pointed out in both the prophets and in the book of Revelation that they say the same thing, that much of mankind will be annihilated. If you bother to read Isaiah 24, backs that up. So does Isaiah 60. So he says, our prophet speaks of the advent of a human leader of a magnitude that the world has not yet experienced. His unique example and leadership will inspire mankind to change direction. Where is Moshiach mentioned in the Scriptures? The Scriptures are replete with messianic quotes. In Deuteronomy 30, verse 1, Moses prophesies that after the Jews have been scattered to the four corners of the earth, there will come a time when they will repent and return to Israel. That's not what it says. It says all Israel. That's all 12 tribes of Israel are going to be repent and return to Israel, and that they will fulfill all the commandments of the Torah. That's right. The Gentile prophet Balaam prophesies this return will be led by Moshiach. See Numbers 24 verse 17. And I have covered 24 verse 17 of Numbers many, many times. The star out of Jacob. Our forefather Jacob refers to Moshiach by the name of Shiloh. I just did that in my previous video. I think I did. Moshiach will be a man who possesses extraordinary qualities. He will be proficient in both the written and oral Torah traditions. Why are you leaving out the prophets? He is going to come to fulfill all of the words of the prophets. It says he will incessantly campaign for Torah observance among Jews and observance of the 7 universal Noahide laws by non-Jews. He will be scrupulous, observant, and encourage the highest standards from others. He will defend religious principles and repair breaches in their observance. Above all, Moshiach will be heralded as a true Jewish king, a person who leads the way in the service of Jehovah, totally humble yet enormously inspiring. When will Moshiach comes? Jews anticipate the arrival of Moshiach every day. Our prayers are full of requests to Jehovah to usher in the Messianic era. Even at the gates of the gas chambers, many Jews sang, Ani Ma'amen. I believe in the coming of Moshiach. He will not arrive on the Sabbath, since that would require people to violate the Sabbath in welcoming him. I suspect that he will arrive on not just a Sabbath, but a holy day. Many rabbis believe that the Messiah will arrive suddenly on the eve of Passover, the first redemption, which serves as a model of final redemption. Makilta de Rabbi Ishmael, Pishya 14. Corruption and degradation will precede redemption. Our statement from the time of the rabbis describes the era leading up to the Messiah in the darkest of terms of social corruption. Some sages predict that the Messiah would not arrive until Israel observes the commandments more fully. That's not true. That's absolutely false. Ezekiel 39 points that out. Starting in verse 12, read it carefully. From that day and forward, from the day that he saves all Israel from Israel's enemies, that is the day when all Israel will believe. Now he says foreign nations will not be obliterated in the Messianic era. That is false. Let's go to Isaiah 60. See if I can find it. Verse 12. The Goi and Mamlakah, the kingdom. Any kingdom of Goi that will not serve you will perish. The goey shall be utterly wasted. Now it says decayed, decayed, to dry up. Now, the indication is the plague of Eliyahu, which was 3.5 years of no rain. Well, there's also more than that. We just read in Zechariah 14 that they're going to be killing each other with horrifying weapons that will cause their eyes to rot out of their heads while they are standing, and their nose to rot in their holes, and their tongue to rot in their mouth while they are standing. It's written right there in the Zechariah. I guess I have to go there. My friends the Jews, please pay attention. Yes, I've been getting after the Christians, and so I'll show this to you too. Now, this shall be the plague, where Jehovah, not God, but Jehovah, will smite all the people that have fought against Jerusalem. So go look back in your history books and find all the nations that have ever fought against Jerusalem, and this is what's going to happen to them. Their flesh shall consume away while they stand upon their feet, and their eyes shall consume away in their holes, and their tongue shall consume away in their mouth. That day a great tumult from Jehovah will be among them, and they shall lay hold every one the hand of his neighbor, and a hand shall rise up against the hand of his neighbor. And Judah will devour Jerusalem, and wealth of all the heathen round about will be gathered, gold, silver, and apparel of great abundance. So you say there won't be annihilation? There are other scriptures that says there's going to be annihilation of the Gentiles. There's not going to be a Rome, because Rome did exactly what Babylon did. So Rome gets Babylon's curse. Jews, you know what Babylon's curse was. You know it. I don't have to show it to you. Jews are required to keep the Sabbath, to eat kosher, to pray, and all the other commandments. But we show our love for Jehovah by doing things that are not commandments, by choosing to live in Israel. All right. There are many who choose to live in Israel but are not allowed to by the government in Israel, and by extension by the Gentile world. What do I mean by that? Well, the Gentile world will not allow the government of Israel to expand the lands according to what is written in Yehoshua 1 verses 1 through 4. You see why the Gentiles are going to have to be annihilated? They're going to stand in the way even when Moshiach comes. They're going to try to stop. Some of them are going to try to stop it. Just like Pharaoh tried to stop Israel from leaving the land of Egypt after he already gave them permission to go. You're doing the commandments if you love one another. Love your neighbor as yourself. Many are not allowed to come to Israel. When someone says they want to come to the land of their fathers because that's where Jehovah's presence is felt the most, We cannot speak for Jehovah. You're not supposed to do this. We do not speak for him. He speaks for himself. Read his words in the prophets, and you'll find what he says. However, the Talmud states that there is a predestined time when Moshiach will come. If we are meritorious, he may come even before that predestined time. Nope. Has nothing to do with merit. Absolutely nothing to do with merit. It has to do with the promises that Jehovah made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You know this. It's not about merit. The end of time remains a mystery, yet the Talmud states that it will be before the Hebrew year 6000. What does the prophet say? You're going to see a horrendous earthquake. You're going to see a cloudy and dark day when the sun doesn't shine. And when meteorites are falling out of the sky. That's what the prophets say. I know that there are some Jews who would be offended by what I am saying because I do not take the Talmud into account. You should be more offended by the fact that you don't take the prophets into account. Now, I have chastised the Christians about rejecting the words of the prophets, but I have not gone after the Jews the same way because of what is written, that Israel is partly blinded until the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. So I will not impugn Israel at all. I will not impugn the Jews nor the rabbis. I will not do that. So he says this does not rule out the possibility of Moshiach's coming today and now if we merit it. No, it's not based upon our merit. In fact, I may have to go find a scripture that backs up what I'm saying here. Not for your sakes, O Israel. Ezekiel 36:32. A new heart and a new spirit. And this is, see here, talks about how the Gentiles have done all these things to the land of Israel and the people of Israel, and how the people of Israel have borne the shame of the heathen. Okay? This is what Jehovah Elohim says, or this is what Adonai, Jehovah says. Say, you eat men and have bereaved your people. Therefore, you shall devour men no more, and neither bereave your people no more, says Jehovah. Okay, neither will I cause men to hear in you the shame of the Gentiles any more, neither shall you the reproach of the people any more, neither shall you cause the goey to fall any more. Okay. Moreover, the word of Jehovah came unto me, saying, Son of man, when the house of Israel dwelt in their own land, they defiled it by their own way, and in their doings. Their way was before me like the uncleanness of a removed woman. For this reason I poured my fury upon them, for the blood that they have shed upon the land, and for the idols where they have polluted. I scattered them among the heathen, and they were dispersed throughout all the countries. According to their way and according to their doing, I judged them. And when they entered unto the heathen where they went, they profaned my holy name, and then they said unto them, These are the people of Jehovah that are gone out from his land. But I had pity for my holy name, which the house of Israel had profaned among the heathen where they went. Say to the house of Israel, Jehovah says, I do not do this for your sakes, O house of Israel, but for my holy name's sake, which you have profaned among the heathen wherever you went. I will sanctify my great name, which was profaned among the heathen, which you have profaned in the midst of them, and the heathen shall know Jehovah, says Jehovah, or says Adonai Jehovah, when I will be sanctified in you before their eyes. Why would he mean his holy name's sake? It is his honor. Because if he does not fulfill the promises made to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, his name is sullied. He's going to defend his name. He's going to defend his word, and he's going to do exactly as he said he was going to do, in spite of the humanity that Israel is. You see, Maimonides, the great Jewish philosopher and codifier of the 12th century, rules that if we recognize a human being who possesses the superlative qualities ascribed to Moshiach, we may presume that he is a potential Moshiach. If this individual actually succeeds in rebuilding the temple and gathering in all the exiles, then he is a Moshiach. Where in the prophets does it say building the temple? It says gather in the exiles. If he succeeds in gathering in the exiles, then he's the Moshiach. Maimonides states in his Mishnah Torah, a compendium of the entire halakhic tradition, that Moshiach will first rebuild the temple and then gather in the exiles. What do the prophets say? When we read Ezekiel 34, does it say anything about rebuilding the temple? No. How about before? Ezekiel as Israel's watchman. Explanation of Jerusalem's fall. So, in Ezekiel 34, it only talks about the gathering of Israel, the gathering of the people. So, Maimonides, he can say all he wants to, that the temple has to be built first. No, it does not. The promises to Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob must be fulfilled. And that is the regathering of all the Israel. That is the new covenant. That is the truth. It's the new covenant in Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34, and of course in all of chapter 31 and 30. The Sanhedrin, the supreme Jewish court, the Jewish law court of 71 sages, will be reestablished and will decide all the matters of the law, of the Torah. At that time, all Jews will return to full Torah observance and practice. It should be noted that in this present age of great assimilation and emancipation, an unprecedented return of Jews to true Torah values has taken place. This Baal Teshuvah phenomenon is on the increase and paves the way for a full return of the Messianic era. That's not true. Once again, Messianic era will return. Jehovah is going to put a blanket pardon on the whole house of Israel and the house of Yehudah. And those who still will not those who still rebel, they will be thrown out. It's written in the prophets. Let me see if I can find that. I think that's also in Ezekiel, under the rod. I think that's where it's at. Let's see. I gotta look for, I think of another word phrasing to remember what it was. The rebels. Purge the rebels. Oh, it was in Ezekiel 20. Strong concordance. Somebody tried to chastise me for using the English Bible, and I'm using Strong's Concordance, folks. All right. As I live, that's swearing by his own name. Well, this says age. It says age. What does that mean? Oh, well, as alive. So as I live, it says Adonai Yehovah. With a mighty hand, with a stretched out arm, and with fury pour out, will I consult to become queen and to reign, king, or to become king and to reign, malach. I don't know why it says consult. That's rule. That is like a king does. And I will bring you out from the people and gather you from all the countries wherein you were scattered, with a mighty hand, with an outstretched arm, with fury poured out. And I will bring you into the wilderness of the people, and there will I judge or govern you to your face, to face, same way as I judged your fathers in the wilderness of the land of Egypt. So will I judge you, says Adonai Yehovah. And I will cause you to pass under the rod, and will bring you into the bond of the covenant. What covenant? It will be the bond of the new covenant. Please read Jeremiah 31, verses 31 through 34. That is the covenant. I know you Jews, you say you don't need a new covenant. Yes, you do, and you'll get one. You're going to get one, and you're going to love it. And you're going to praise Jehovah's name because of it. It will be a great thing for you. And hopefully for me. And I will purge out all from among you the rebels that trespass against me, that come out of the countries where they sojourn, and those will not enter into the land of Israel, and you shall know Jehovah. Okay? Now, will miracles happen? The Talmud discusses this question again and arrives at the conclusion that if we are meritus, no, it does not. That's not true. Because we are not meritus. It is undeserved. The Messianic redemption will be accompanied by miracles. No, it's going to be accompanied by miracles. However, the realization of the Messianic dream, even if it takes place naturally, will be the greatest miracle, like cancellation of all planes going on all over the world. All right? So now you should know by now why I'm always in suspect of the Talmud, because it directly counters the words of the prophets. We'll go to Isaiah 60. Verse 1, arise and shine, for thy light is come, the glory of Jehovah is risen upon you. The darkness will cover the earth. We just read about that in Ezekiel 34. That's when he's going to gather all the people of Israel out from the land of the Gentiles, and gross darkness to people. So the gross darkness is going to be upon the Gentiles, but Jehovah will arise upon you, and his glory shall be seen upon you. And the Gentiles shall come to your light. You say they will be blocked out. Nope, that's not what the prophets say. Listen carefully, folks. And kings to the brightness of your rising, lift up your eyes round about, and see all they gather themselves together, and they come to you. Your sons shall come from afar, and your daughters shall be nursed at your side. You will see and flow together, your heart shall be enlarged, and fear. Because the murmuring, the hormone of the Mediterranean Sea will be overthrown. Hophak will be overthrown. The wealth, efficiency, armies of the Gentiles will be yours. They may even come against you, but they will be yours. See. So it says that that the tents of Israel are going to be enlarged because the murmuring crowds of the Mediterranean Sea will be overthrown when the armies of the Gentiles come in. Maybe they're coming in to invade and be obliterated. Now the multitude of camels will cover you, the dromedaries of Midian and Ephah, all from Sheba shall come. They're going to bring you gold and incense, and they shall show forth praises of Jehovah. It says exactly which nations are going to do this. And it says that the nations in the Mediterranean Sea will be overthrown, will be annihilated. Why? Because those were the ones who held you captive, O Israel. The flocks of Qatar will be gathered unto you. The rams of Nebaioth shall be ministered unto you, and they will come up with acceptance on my altar, and then glorify the house of my glory. Listen, folks, listen, Jews, please listen carefully. To fly. Who is flying as a cloud, like doves to their windows? Those that wait for me in the coastlands of the Mediterranean Sea do. The ships of Tarshish will be first, will take the lead. Flying ships, airliners, to bring your sons from far, their gold and silver with them, unto the name of Jehovah Elohim, to the Holy One of Israel, or to beautify and glorify. The sons of the Gentiles will build your walls. Yes, the Gentiles will be there to build your walls, O Jerusalem, and their kings shall minister unto you, because in my wrath I smote you, but in my favor I will now have mercy upon you. Your gates will be opened continually, and they will not be shut. They will not be shut day nor night, so that men will bring unto you the wealth of the Gentiles, and that their kings may also be brought. Because the nation and kingdom that will not serve you shall perish. Yes, those nations shall be dried up, utterly wasted. Okay? No planes? Wrong. Wrong. Where was I? Yes. Cancellation of all planes going on around the world. Maimonides writes, neither the order of the occurrence of these events nor the precise details among the fundamental principles of faith. One should wait and believe in the general conception of the matter. What will become of the world as we know it? Initially, there will be no change in the world order. Oh, yes, there will. It will be massive and calamitous. Isaiah 24. Read it for yourself. It says, all the nations of the world will strive to create a new world order in which there will be no more wars or conflicts. No, they're going to be smitten and forced. It said, we just read in Isaiah 14, that the nations who made you be slaves, O Israel, are going to be your slaves, O Israel. You see? It says, in the Messianic era, there will be great advances in technology, allowing a high standard of living. The food will be plentiful and cheap. This concept here that he's talking about is an error, because it is written. Well, first of all, we know that technology today is derived from turning your plowshares into swords and your pruning hooks into spears. All you've got to do is take a look and see all the nuclear weapons that Russia and the United States and many other nations have, and I believe that case can be made. It is written that they're going to turn their swords back into plowshares and their swords back into pruning hooks, and they will not learn war anymore. So it's going to be an agrarian society, not based on the technologies of war. The technologies that we have right now are the technologies of war. And if it's an agrarian society, guess what? The food will be plentiful and cheap. Now he says, however, the focus on human aspiration will be the pursuit of the knowledge of Jehovah. No, it won't be. Let me show you. Oh, I'm messing up here again. Okay. Jeremiah 31. The New Covenant chapter. Believe, O Israel. Behold, the days come, says Jehovah, that I will make a new covenant with the house of Israel and with the house of Yehudah. See that word? New? Chadash means new. Covenant. Not according to the covenant that I made with the house of I made with their fathers in the day that I took them by the hand to bring them out of the land of Egypt, which covenant they broke. Although I was a husband unto them, says Jehovah. But this shall be the covenant that I will make with the house of Israel after those days. After what days? After the dominion of the Gentiles has come to an end. I will put my Torah in their inward parts and write it in their hearts, and will be their Elohim, and they shall be my people. And they shall teach. It says, no more every man his neighbor and every man his brother, saying, know Jehovah, because they will all know me, from the least of them unto the greatest of them, says Jehovah, for I will forgive their iniquity and will remember their sins no more. So him forgiving the iniquity of Israel and remembering their sins no more will convince all Israel to know Jehovah. They are not going to be told know Jehovah, because they already will. There is a tradition that a great war will take place called the War of Gog and Magog, and there is much speculation as to the precise timing of this war in relation to Moshiach's arrival. There is a tradition that Eliah the prophet will come to the world and announce the imminent arrival of Moshiach. However, according to other opinions, Moshiach may arrive unannounced. We have to wait and see for that. Eliah would then arrive to assist in the peace process. All right, stop right here and we'll go to Isaiah 66 and we'll see what Eliah will do. That's 64 or 66. Jehovah's final judgment against the wicked. Right? So, Jehovah will come with fire. So at the day of his coming, he's going to come with fire. And his chariots like a whirlwind to render his anger with fury and his rebuke with flames of fire. That means a lot of people are going to be dead. And we'll continue to read this and you'll see it. For by fire and by his sword will Jehovah judge all flesh, and the slain of Jehovah shall be many. And so you say it won't? Listen to the prophets carefully, O Israel. I have repeatedly over the past 5 years demanded that the Gentiles read the prophets. You too, Israel. Those that sanctify themselves and purify themselves in the garden or groves behind a tree and eating swine's flesh and abomination and the mouse, you know who those are, Gentiles, will all be consumed together. Suf, to come to an end, to cease. That's when the time of the Gentiles comes to an end. I know their works and their thoughts, and it shall come that I will gather all the Goy and the tongues, and they will come and see my glory. Isaiah 60, we just read it. And I will send a sign. Set a sign among them. Those are wondrous signs where the sun turns dark and the moon to blood before the great and terrible day of Jehovah comes. And he's going to send some escapee, or maybe two escapees, two witnesses. This is the Aliyah he's talking about here. Some of the escapees of the Goy. In other words, they escaped out of the Goy back to Tarshish. We just read in Isaiah 60 that Tarshish was going to be first. And indeed, we read right here, it's listed first. To do what? The ships of Tarshish are going to be directed by this Aliyah, a servant of Jehovah, to gather all Israel out of all the lands. And why is Tarshish first? Why are the lands of the Atlantic first? Because that's where the majority of dislocated or scattered Israelites are today, in the Atlantic. So first to Tarshish, then to Pul, then to Lud, then to Tubal, and to Greece, and to the coastlands, to hear my fame, to see my glory, and they shall declare my glory among the Gentiles. So, this Aliyah the prophet, or two witnesses, they are going to bear the responsibility of bringing all Israel back. And they shall bring all your brethren for an offering unto Jehovah out of all the Gentiles. See? Folks, the prophets make it simple. And you Hebrew-speaking people, you have an advantage because you can read the words of the prophets and it's much more clear to you if you understand Hebrew. Upon Sus. Now, what is Sus? Well, you think it's horses. Upon birds. Isaiah 60. Verse 8 and 9. And in chariots, and in litters, and upon mules, and on every kind of vehicle known to man. Whatever will get them there. Whatever it takes. Be it the chariots of, that if it's got to be all the way up to the chariot that brought Eliah himself, or that took him, whatever it takes. Back to my holy mountain Jerusalem, says Jehovah. And the children of Israel will come as an offering in a clean vessel into the house of Jehovah. And the children of Israel will be for priests and for Levites. All the children of Israel will be for priests and Levites. They will be a kingdom of priests. You know this, and I know this. For as a new heaven and a new earth, which I will make, shall remain before me, says Jehovah, and your seed and your name shall remain. Right. I don't know who's going to appear first, Moshiach or Eliah. We'll find out. As mentioned before, it is unclear as to actually how these events will unfold. However, this uncertainty does not affect the general matter of Moshiach's arrival. When will the resurrection of the dead take place? The principles of Jewish faith, it is believed that the resurrection of the dead, according to the Zohar and early Kabbalistic texts, the resurrection will take place 40 years after the arrival of Moshiach. Well, if we read Isaiah 24, it implies something different. At the day, the time, the moon shall be confounded and the sun ashamed. That's when the moon and the sun go dark. At the time when Jehovah of hosts shall reign in Mount Zion and Jerusalem, but it says, and with his ancients, with the old. That implies the patriarchs, Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob. You see. You see? That's when the resurrection is going to be. How about that? And of course we can read in Daniel 9. I'm sorry, not Daniel 9. Daniel 12. Talks about this too. At that time shall Michael stand up, the great prince which stands for the children of the people of Israel. There shall be a time of adversary, terrible trouble, not such as there never was since there was a nation. No, it says upon the goey. The word is goey. There is no such as never was since there was a. That's not what it says. It just says on the goey. Now at that same time, your people shall be delivered, every one that's found written in the book. And many of them that sleep in the dust of the earth shall awake at that time. It is in the prophets, my brothers, the Jews. Please read the prophets. It's there. Some to everlasting life and some to everlasting contempt. And those that are wise shall shine as the brightness of the firmament. And abundance will be just and righteous. Wow! Imagine that. As a star forever. Now, all right, so that answers the question about when the resurrection is going to be. Okay? One of the principles of Jewish faith is the belief in the resurrection of the dead. Okay, I just read that. Clarity is a catalyst for charity is a catalyst for redemption, and every day in our prayers we should sincerely plead many times for the rebuilding of Jerusalem. There's something that's more important than that. And that is giving something to the poor among the Jews. Making sure that they have water to drink and food to eat. Okay? That's more important. And you'll find out soon enough. Okay, the ingathering of the exiles and return to Torah observance under the leadership of Moshiach. Now, I agree with this right here. The rebuilding of Jerusalem will take place. You don't have to worry about that. Let's do what it is that we can do. Okay? In conclusion, the Jew always was and remains the eternal optimist. Even in his darkest hour, he hopes and prays for a brighter future, a world of peace and spirituality. Not spirituality, folks, righteousness. Righteousness. Love your neighbor as yourself. I think I'm done with this. Okay?